Welcome students. Already we have started with the chapter Force and Laws of Motion, and we have already discussed about force, about the two types of force such as balanced and unbalanced force, and about the effects of force in the previous class. Today we are going to start with the next topic of the chapter, Force and Laws of Motion. So before we start today's session, let me ask you something. Imagine you are seated in front of a TV watching your favorite movie, and suddenly if your mom calls out your name and asks you to get up and go and study, imagine how difficult it would be to get up and go and study, right? And now consider another example. Suppose if you are practicing a running race on a track and your friend suddenly calls out your name and asks you to stop immediately within a second, will you be able to? Or if somebody asks you to make a sharp turn immediately, a sudden turn immediately, will you be able to turn suddenly? The answer to both the questions is a big no. You won't be able to stop suddenly, or you won't be able to make a sharp turn immediately. You can stop or you can make a sudden turn gradually, but not immediately. This tendency of any object to resist any type of changes is known as inertia. So, the property of an object to resist any type of changes is known as inertia. This is the property of an object to resist any change. That is, an object will remain in a state of rest or in uniform motion. The object will continue to be in a state of rest or in uniform motion. It resists any type of changes. If an object was at rest, its tendency is to be in a state of rest itself. If an object is in motion, its tendency is to be in a state of motion itself. It resists any type of changes, and that property is known as inertia. Now, how can we change the state of inertia? How can we change the state of inertia? We can change the state of inertia by applying an unbalanced external force. We can change the state of rest to motion, or from motion to rest, or we can change the velocity of a body. We can change its uniform motion. That is, we can change the velocity of a body and we can accelerate the body only by the application of an unbalanced force. So, we can change this state of inertia. The state of inertia can be changed by the application of an unbalanced force. By the application of an unbalanced force, we can change the state of inertia. That is, we can make an object move, or we can bring an object to rest by the application of an unbalanced force. And this is Newton's first law of motion. That is, every object remains in a state of rest or in uniform motion until it is acted upon by an unbalanced force. Every object will remain in a state of rest or in uniform motion until it is acted upon by an unbalanced external force. This is Newton's first law. So every body exhibits the property of inertia until it is acted upon by an unbalanced force. Hence, Newton's first law is also known as law of inertia. Law of inertia. So, only if we apply an unbalanced force, we can make an object move from rest, or we can bring an object to rest, or we can accelerate any object. We need to apply an unbalanced force. Until then, the object will resist any type of change. That is why Newton's first law is also known as law of inertia. So, now we spoke about inertia, Newton's first law. Now, let us see the three types of inertia. This inertia are of three types. First one is inertia of rest. Second one, inertia of motion, and third one, inertia of direction. The three types of inertias are inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction. Let us see all this in detail. Inertia of rest means a body will continue to be in a state of rest itself. The tendency of a body is to remain in a state of rest itself. That is inertia of rest. Inertia of motion means the tendency of the body is to continue in a state of motion. That is inertia of motion. And third one, inertia of direction means the body's tendency is to continue in its initial direction. Suppose if a body was moving in forward direction, the body's tendency is to move in the forward direction itself. It doesn't change its direction. It doesn't change its direction. That is inertia of direction. Let us discuss some practical applications based on inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction, so that the concept will be more clear to you. That is, consider a moving bus. Consider a moving bus, and you are standing inside a moving bus. You are standing inside a moving bus. If bus suddenly stops, you people will lean forward. Why? Why? Answer is, it is due to inertia of motion. It is due to inertia of motion. That is, initially the bus was moving. Along with the bus, you people were also in motion. So, what is your body's tendency? To remain in that state of motion itself. But now the bus has suddenly come to stop. But your body's tendency is to move forward itself. So, your body try to resist the change. Hence, you lean forward because your tendency is to be in motion itself, is to move forward. So, that is why your body moves forward when bus suddenly stops. In simple terms, you can say it is due to inertia of motion. Now, just take the reverse case. If a bus suddenly, initially the bus was at rest, and if the bus suddenly accelerates or bus starts moving, you lean backward. The reverse of the first situation that we discussed just now. That is, initially the bus was at rest. You people are standing inside that bus, that is you are also at rest. And your body's tendency is to remain in rest itself. But now the bus has suddenly started moving. But what is your body's tendency? To remain in rest itself. That is why you lean backward. You don't wish to move. Your body's tendency is to be in the initial state of rest. That is why you lean backward. In simple terms, you can say it is due to inertia of rest. Because initially you were in a state of rest and your body's tendency is to remain in a state of rest itself. Hence, you lean backward while the bus gets started. That is due to inertia of rest. Now, when a bus makes a sharp turn, you people will be thrown out to one of the side. Why? So, initially the bus was moving in a particular direction. You are seated in that bus. So, your body's tendency is also to move in that particular direction itself. So, when the bus takes a sudden turn, what is your body's tendency? Is to remain in that particular initial direction. So, you try to resist the change. Your body tried to resist the change. Hence, you are thrown out to one of the side. That is, it is due to inertia of direction. It is due to inertia of direction. So, these are the three types of inertia and its examples. Now, let me ask a question. Why you wear a seat belt while you drive or while you are in a car? What is the use or necessity of a seat belt while you are inside a moving car? Yes, it is because to avoid accidents or injuries. If we explain it further, suppose you are in a moving car and you have worn the seat belt. Imagine the car has applied a sudden brake. So, initially you people were in motion and your body's tendency is to be in motion itself. And the car applied a sudden brake. So that, but your body's tendency is to move. That is, your body will lean forward. Your body will lean forward. So, when a sudden brake is applied, your body will lean forward due to inertia of motion. So, there is a possibility of collision with the front panel and you may get injured. So, to avoid that collision, we wear seat belt. So, when you lean forward, the seat belt will apply an opposite force. Seat belt will apply an opposite force. So, you will be moved back and the collision can be avoided and you won't be injured. So, that is a use or necessity of wearing a seat belt while you are in a moving car. Hope this much topic is clear for everyone. Now, let us see, let us imagine we have two blocks, a tiny block and a huge block, a tiny block and a huge block. Which one would be easier to push? This tiny or the heavy block? Which one would be easier to push? Definitely this tiny block. Why? Why? Because the tendency of this heavier object to remain in state of rest will be more. These two blocks are in rest now. So, both will have a tendency to remain in a state of rest itself. And that tendency to remain in the state of rest will be more for heavier objects compared to the less heavier objects. So, the tendency to resist any change will be more for heavier object. So, initially both the blocks are at rest. The tendency of the heavier block to remain in a state of rest is more. Hence, we are able to move more easily the tiny block because its tendency to remain in rest will be less compared to this heavier one. That is, as mass increases, inertia also increases. Inertia also increases. And mass is a measure of inertia. Mass is a measure of inertia. Heavier the object, more will be the inertia. That is, when an object is heavier, its tendency to resist any change will be high. That is why it is difficult to move a heavier block compared to a tiny block. So, mass is a measure of inertia. As mass increases, inertia also increases, or the tendency to resist any change will be more for heavier object. Hope the topics covered today are clear for you. That is, the topics that we have covered today in this session was about inertia. Inertia is the tendency to resist any type of change. That is, every body continue to be in a state of rest or in uniform motion, and this property is known as inertia. And inertia are of three types: inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction. And Newton's first law means every object remains to be in a state of rest or in uniform motion until it is acted upon by an external unbalanced force. And this Newton's first law is also known as law of inertia. And we discussed certain practical application with regard to inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction. And the last point that we have just discussed is mass is the measure of inertia. Heavier object will have greater inertia. Hope this much is clear for everyone. Now, let us move on to the questions which are there in your textbook. That is, you can take page number 118 of your NCERT science textbook. There are a set of blue questions over there. Let us discuss those questions now. That is page number 118 of your NCERT science textbook. Question number 1. Which of the following has more inertia? So, already we have discussed heavier objects has more inertia. First one is a rubber ball and a stone of same size. A rubber ball and a stone of same size, which will have more inertia. As we have discussed now, heavier objects have more inertia. So, compared to the stone, compared to the rubber ball, stone has more mass. Both are having same size. So, compared to the rubber ball, stone is more heavier. So, inertia will be more for stone. Inertia will be more for stone because stone is heavier compared to the rubber ball. Now, question number 2. Question number 1, subdivision B. A bicycle and a train. Subdivision B, a bicycle and a train. Again, compared to bicycle, train is more heavier. Heavier objects have greater inertia. Hence, train will have greater inertia compared to bicycle. Subdivision C, a 5 rupee coin and a 1 rupee coin. A 5 rupee coin and a 1 rupee coin. Compared to this 1 rupee coin, 5 rupee coin is heavier. Again, heavier objects have greater inertia. So, this 5 rupee coin will have a greater inertia compared to 1 rupee coin. The reason for all these questions are heavier the object, more will be its inertia. This concept is used to do the first question. Heavier the objects, more will be its inertia. So, compared to the rubber ball, stone is having greater mass. So, stone will have greater inertia. Compared to bicycle, train has greater mass. So, train will have more inertia. And compared to the 1 rupee coin, 5 rupee coin is more heavier. That is, 5 rupee coin will have more inertia. Now, coming to the second question of page number 118. In the following example, try to identify the number of times the velocity of the ball changes. So, a situation is given and you need to identify how many times the velocity of the ball changed. And the situation is, a football player kicks a football to another player of his team who kicks the football towards the goal. The goalkeeper of the opposite team collects the football and kicks it towards a player of his own team. That is the situation given. That is, a football player kicks a football. So, initially the football was at rest. That is, velocity is 0. Now, the football player is kicking the football towards another player. That is, the football player is applying a force on the ball. When a force is applied on the ball, its state will change. That is, initially the ball was at rest. When a force is applied, it attains some velocity, it gains some velocity and it will start to move. So, on getting a force, the football which was initially at rest started moving with the velocity u. With the velocity u, let it be u. Let the velocity gained be u. So, on kicking a football, the velocity changed from 0 to u. Again, the second football player kicks the football towards the goal. Again, the second football player kicks the football towards the goal. So, the ball with velocity u reached the second player. Again, the second player also kicked it. He also applied a force. Again, on the application of force, again the velocity will change. So, the velocity changed from 0 to v. The velocity changed from 0 to v. On the application of the force, the velocity got changed from u to v. Now, the goalkeeper collects the football. So, the football with velocity v reached the goalkeeper and he collected it. Collected it means the football has come to rest. So, initially the ball had a velocity v. When the goalkeeper collected it, the velocity got reduced back to 0 meter per second. Again, the goalkeeper, after collecting it, again he kicked it towards another player. So, the football which was at rest, when the goalkeeper kicks it, again by the application of that force, the velocity will definitely change from 0 to, let it be, v dash. So, initially the football was at rest. When the football player kicks it, that is, he applied a force on it. As a result of that force, the velocity got changed from 0 to u. Then another football player again kicked it. So, again the velocity changed from u to v, and the goalkeeper collected it. Next situation is the goalkeeper collected it. So, again the velocity changed from v to 0. Collected it means the ball has come to rest. So, v to 0. Again, after collecting it, the goalkeeper again kicked it towards another player. So, again the velocity changed from 0 to v dash. That is, again the football moved from rest, gaining a velocity v dash. So, these number of times the velocity changed by the application of force. So, velocity can be changed, or we can accelerate any body only if we apply an unbalanced force on it. This is the answer of second question. Now, third question is, explain why some of the leaves may get detached from a tree if we vigorously shake its branch. That is, initially along with the branch, the leaves were in state of rest. Now we are shaking the branch. What is the tendency of the leaves? To remain in its state of rest itself. Okay? To remain in its state of rest itself. But the branch is being shaken. But the tendency of the leaf is to resist that change. The tendency of the leaf is to resist that change and to be in a state of rest itself. So, due to that resistance, the leaves gets detached and fall. The leaves gets detached and fall. In simple sentence, we can say that it is due to inertia of rest. It is due to inertia of rest. That is, when a branch is shaken, branch attains motion, but leaf tends to be in a state of rest itself due to inertia of rest. Hence, they detaches and fall. Or in simple sentence, you can give the answer as it is due to inertia of rest. Okay, that is the answer for the third question. And fourth one is, already we have discussed that why do you fall in the forward direction when a moving bus brakes to a stop, and fall backward when it accelerates from rest. So, why do you lean forward when a bus suddenly stops? It is due to inertia of motion. And why do you lean backward when a bus suddenly accelerates or when a bus suddenly starts? It is due to inertia of rest. It is due to inertia of rest. In detail, we have already discussed this example. Hope today's session is clear for everyone. So, the topics covered were inertia, the three cases of inertia, and Newton's first law. That is page number we have covered the topics from page number 116 to 118 of your textbook. Please read your textbook thoroughly. Thank you.